try this again. I hope everyone is doing okay today. Let's hop across the pond. There are amazing and profound events that are taking place in the UK right now, and they have to be discussed. This is fascinating. This is one of my favorite pictures of Theresa May. You know, I like those blue blazers, and I like powerful women. Both of those things kind of work in tandem for whatever reason. But nevertheless, this picture is awesome. It puts you in the mind of those movie style, like these movie stars. When they get older, they become more grizzled in their characters. They get more, gray within the moral ambiguities of the character. Sometimes they get these awesome things. Like, I'm trying to think of somebody but nobody's coming to mind. Dan Aykroyd has done this, where he's gotten older, more gritty in his character. So has, what is his name? The guy who keeps his shirt off all the time. I can't think of his name. God, I can't think of his name. My wife loves this character and this detective thing. I think he was in Magic Mike. Kevin McCartney, whatever his name is. But this picture, associated with all the calamity that Theresa May has been encountering, works well. This is a woman that is getting hit in the face over and over again with one calamity after the next, and she keeps going. It is a zombie government, and yet she keeps going. She keeps lurching herself along. Never mind the chaos. So, the thing that's taking place today. This took place last week. Let's see. Wait, let's flip over.
The eyes to the right, 202. The nose to the left, 432.
People are...
Eyes to the right, 202. The nose, order.
I love Brookout. So, what you were seeing, even though it was somewhat muted, and people like, oh, the horrificness. That vote, 432 to 202, what you were seeing was essentially the government's withdrawal bill being clubbed to death on the floor of Parliament. All of these guys beating the devil out of it, with Burkow essentially proclaiming it dead. Now, on pronouncement of the death of the withdrawal agreement, Theresa May had to come back within, I think it was 3 days, work days, which ends up being today. She had to bring back what's been dubbed Plan B to Parliament today. I'm sorry, I dropped some eyes. My eyes are a little weird. Everything has lights on them. She has to bring it back today, though. She has to essentially say, all right, here's the second idea that I had after you guys completely destroyed the first idea. It was understood that the first idea was going to lose, and she did everything in her power over the course of, let's say, even try to postpone it for a month, to keep that deal or come to some kind of day where that deal doesn't have its reckoning. It's like dead reckoning. Well, it failed. The deal died. The deal was beat brutally in Parliament, and she had to come up with Plan B. Now, so being compelled to come up with a Plan B, she brings that Plan B to Parliament today, and she reveals it. The big reveal. What has the government been hiding? What has the government come up with? And Plan B was essentially the reanimated corpse of Plan A with a bad toupee and a pair of glasses. And for the most part, that did not go over all that well. And it this idea that, oh my God, we're headed for Mad Max, no deal Brexit. We're going to crash out of the EU. In which case, caused a certain degree of chaos and pandemonium. Now, let me show you what I mean by this. So when Theresa May revealed her Plan B and I love this. In the chamber, Mrs. May claimed 3 key changes to her rejected deal, offering a greater say for Parliament over the future trade talks, stronger protections on worker rights and the environment, and movement on the backstop. Meaning you need to do something on this backstop issue, otherwise there's nothing to talk about. 3 key proposals. Now, taking that to the side for the moment, she got rid of the charge for European citizens who wanted to stay in Britain. There was like, I think, a €67 euro charge. She got rid of that. Everybody loved that part. €65, 65 pound fee for European citizens. But taking that to the side for the moment, there are 3 key changes to the Brexit thing. The first 2 were promised last week. So she has 3 key proposals, and the first 2 of them were promised last week. And on the backstop, the main proposal here is I'm going to go back to the European Union and talk to them. Her spokesman said afterwards that she would seek further changes on fears about its quote-unquote permanence, but did not pretend that the European Union is about to be presented with fresh ideas. So you can imagine people are screaming, fraud! Fraud! This Plan B looks a lot like Plan A. In fact, it is Plan A, reanimated with some kind of voodoo magic. Alright, so let's go to the top of this. There's a few things that break down from this, though. Because of this, people start putting their own plans up. Meaning there are like 5 competing Brexit proposals that have been essentially, I guess you could say, being talked about. And they are trying to wrestle control away from the Prime Minister with amendments to many of these, with amendments to the Prime Minister's Brexit bill. This is what's taking place in Britain is amazing. Let's see. There's another part to this. Okay, right. She gets rid of that. Right here. On the backstop, Mrs. May said, despite the changes we have previously agreed, there remains 2 core issues: the fear that we could be trapped in it permanently, and concerns over the potential impact on our union if Northern Ireland is treated differently from the rest of the UK. She would hold further talks with MPs, including the DUP, on possible changes, and adding, I will then take the conclusions to those discussions back to the European Union. Now, the European Union, you don't have to wait for that, because the European Union has already answered. The Prime Minister is reportedly seeking a so-called sunset clause on the backstop, after which it would cease to have any effect. However, the European Union's chief negotiator, Michel Barnier, rejected this on Monday, that's today, telling RTE that the current deal agreed with the Prime Minister was the best deal possible. Barnier said it's now for the UK leaders to build around a stable political majority for a deal. We are waiting for the next steps, and we are working in on a political declaration. Labour Party leader accused it of a sham attempt to reach out to other parties. The Prime Minister's invitation to talks have been exposed as a PR sham, he said. And you can understand that. I mean, ultimately, what I just gave you were the 3 key issues that the Prime Minister said she was changing. Like I said, the first 2 had already agreed to plan, and the third issue is a non-starter from the standpoint of the European Union. Hence, Mad Max, Brexit. Now, the Prime Minister has another problem. 40 government ministers could resign unless they can vote against the no deal Theresa May warned. So, Theresa May was warned that several of her ministers want to be able to vote against a no-deal Brexit. Essentially, they want to take it off the table. Theresa May has made the point that this is impossible, and I agree with her. That is impossible. How can the person that I don't know why she has to explain this, but she does. And I'll even explain why it's impossible. If you're in a negotiation and your ability to walk away is just part of it, this negotiation isn't going to work. I'm walking. You know, it's like, we want you to give us $10,000 every day just because we're great people. Okay, yeah, that's not going to be a part of the negotiation. I'm walking. Now, your ability to walk is just part of the negotiation. if something is not right, if something is off, if something is too, laborious, or laborious is the wrong word for it, if it's too egregious, then you would walk. It's not something that you can sell to your population. It's something that your population wouldn't want you to try to even sell to them. It's understood. You walk. But what happens when you put a bar on the door? When you say it is impossible that I can leave this room? That whatever negotiations we have, at the end of those negotiations, a deal is going to be made. It is impossible for me to leave the room. Meaning, if I give you an egregious deal and I say this is the only deal you're going to get, you're stuck with that. At some point, you're always at somewhat of a disadvantage that the people who you're dealing with may not necessarily be honest actors. Not being honest actors will try to get the best deal possible for themselves. Even if the deal is not completely egregious, but it's just unfair, you're still stuck with the results of the deal because you've already said you're not walking out the door. Like, when Jeremy Corbyn says this, I look at this as to be political grandstanding. Certainly, he knows that you can't go into a negotiation with the European Union saying we're going to get a deal regardless. Regardless. There is no way we're walking out of that door. In which case, the European Union is just going to say, all right, here, this is the deal that we're going to give you, take it or leave it. Hell, why not the European Union offering the Prime Minister's deal and say that's the deal you're going to get, take it or leave it? And what are you going to say? We're not going to leave it? We're going to be stuck with the Prime Minister's deal because you guys have ruled out a no-deal Brexit? I guess my point is that doesn't really make sense. If Jeremy Corbyn wins the Prime Ministership, just for a thought experiment, and Jeremy Corbyn has said we are going to rule out a Brexit, and he goes to the European Union and the European Union says the deal that we're offering you is the deal that we offered the Prime Minister. What is Jeremy Corbyn going to now say? Well, now no deal Brexit is on the table, or is he just going to be stuck with the deal the Prime Minister put, even though he was completely against that deal when he was in the opposition? I'm saying the logic of this doesn't really make sense from the standpoint of doing any level of negotiation. I understand it from Jeremy Corbyn's standpoint as a political stunt. However, there are members of Theresa May's own backbench that are also pushing for this perspective of taking no deal Brexit off the table. I don't know how you can do this, but that is exactly what they are doing. And just the Prime Minister right here. The argument that I just made is going to be made by the Prime Minister in a more British way. The Prime Minister has repeatedly refused to rule out no deal, saying to do so is impossible. It's impossible. I agree with her. The amendment tabled by Mrs. Cooper would force the government to ask the European Union to delay Brexit until the end of the year if no deal is in place by the end of February. They're trying to wrestle control from the Prime Minister on this stuff. Asked about the proposal while answering questions from MPs in the Commons, Mrs. May insisted that the only way to guarantee there is not a no-deal Brexit is to revoke Article 50 entirely, a move she said will go against the referendum result. Yes, but you need to explain why. You need to explain why. I understand her thinking on this, but she needs to be... She's saying this in a way where she's assuming people understand the basics of her thinking, like the underlying part of her thinking. In order to get rid of a no deal, you have to get rid of Article 50 entirely. Yeah, she's right. Because ultimately, any negotiation that you're going to have with him has to have the potential for being able to walk away from the negotiation. We can say no if this is, it's like the European Union says, yeah, you're going to be a non-voting member of our body. What are you going to say? No. You can make the assumption that the European Union would not ask for something too egregious, but why would you make that assumption? And why would you chain yourself into getting a deal at all costs, as if Britain is completely desperate? I think it is necessary to get a deal. No, I don't necessarily think it's possible to take no deal off the table. I agree with Theresa May on this. Let's keep going. There's widespread concern about the possibility of the UK leaving without a deal, and there are those on both sides of the House who want the government to rule this out. But we need to be honest with the British people about what that means. The right way to rule out no deal is for this House to approve a deal with the European Union. That is what the government is seeking to achieve. Okay. She continued, the only other way to guarantee a no-deal Brexit is to revoke Article 50, which would mean staying within the European Union. There are those who think that we need more time, so we should extend Article 50 to give longer to Parliament to debate how we should leave and what a deal should look like. This is not ruling out a no deal, but simply deferring the point of decision. And the European Union are very unlikely simply to agree to extend Article 50 without a plan for how we're going to approve a deal. Her thinking here is lucid. I like it. I like it. It's accurate. It's right. She's, in this case, being honest. If you want to ensure that we don't leave without a deal, then you need to revoke Article 50. If you do not revoke Article 50, then in the negotiation position is going to be present. There's going to be present an option, by necessity, of us being in a negotiation for no deal. There's always a potential that you walk if what being asked of you is too egregious. Her thinking is right. Her thinking is right. But they're hitting her on this. I'm fascinated that they're hitting her on this. But they're trying to push her to be able to vote their conscience. Yeah, right here. And she is facing an exodus of government ministers if she doesn't allow them to. Meaning, if you don't allow us to have a free vote on this no deal Brexit, meaning to rule this out, then you're going to have us evacuate your government. I find this amazing. Theresa May has been warned that up to 40 government ministers could resign if she refuses to allow them to vote for a plan that would block a no-deal Brexit in March. Amber Rudd, Work and Pension Secretary, told Number 10 it faces an exodus of members of government unless ministers are allowed to support a backbench amendment that would extend Article 50 if a Brexit deal is not in place within weeks. The amendment, tabled by Labour's Yvette Cooper and former Tory Minister Sir Oliver Luton and Nick Bowles, will be debated and voted in Commons on January 29th. Amber is telling Downing Street to make a free vote on behalf of lots of people. Mrs. Rudd declined to comment. Yeah. But that's what's taking place in the UK right now. I'm fascinated by this. I love British politics. But let's be clear, from the standpoint of Labour, hitting her on the no Brexit thing is politics. That is absolute politics. Wow, these are going so fast. You can barely see them. Trump is working to spark the collapse of the shutdown. Is he now? AOC did more by calling into H. Bomber Guy's charity stream than any Democrats have done during the shutdown. That's funny. Jamarl, have you thought about doing more funny prank videos? Funny prank videos get high counts, or did YouTube make it so you don't get paid for view counts? No. Well, we are. There's one that there's one in the works. There is one in the works. But Trudy, young people should sit down and be quiet. I know, Trudy. How dare they? How dare they? Here you are. Hope I can hold this stream for more than 5 minutes. I hope I can hold this stream for more than 5 minutes myself too. This has been aggravating. Love your honesty when it comes to British politics, Jamal. You can really look at things here with a fairly unbiased view. No, I am entirely biased. But it's just, I'm biased to a position. Like I human beings are more important than people. That's somewhat of a basis for thought, and kind of go from there. When I'm looking at the systems itself, some of this stuff is just kind of intellectual to me on why she's behaving the way she's behaving. Like, it's somewhat of an argument of why she doesn't call for a second referendum, or why she rules that out. And she makes this argument of public trust. Well, that's true. I agree with her. Me not liking Theresa May doesn't necessarily mean that I can't identify with her on certain points, if that makes sense. You're sitting on the moon looking at events. What do you see? I try, but I do have a bias to a position, and not necessarily to people. As long as people are advocating a position, I'm more inclined to be that way. Do you support a second referendum? I do not, Sheila Ferguson. I do not. You've had a referendum already. Get on with the referendum. Just saying. And I know some people massively disagree with me with that. Even some of my audience, and fair enough. I mean, the population itself in Britain broke down to almost like 50-50. So fair enough. But no, your country, in a mass upswell of support, took a vote, and in taking that vote, one government collapsed. Cameron's government collapsed. Another government comes in with the sole purpose of navigating through the Brexit. Ultimately, people have started to lose their will for it because they're just getting sick of it. But the implementation they've never done the implementation. You have a large section of people that, whether you agree with the people or not, you guys took a vote. That was a democratic process. I don't agree with this thing of countermanding referendums. You may not necessarily like the referendum. The referendum results may be a pain in the ass to implement, but you're somewhat stuck with the results. I mean, it's democracy in action, in an overt way, not necessarily filtered through the political space itself or through political actors. Go do this. The problem here is that you've had a government that didn't fully believe in the thing that the people told them to go and do. In which case, this is, this kind of weird platypus that you've ended up with in regards to a plan. So no, I'm not on board for a second referendum. If you need to have another election, have another election. But the public itself had voted. At least that's the way I see it. That's the way I see it. Sir Bike Salat a day. The only reason why she's still in power is because they don't want a Corbyn. Yes, that's true. Anybody but Corbyn. Yes, that's true. God, that's true. I mean, 19 people kept her in power. A screaming 19 people. So yeah. Agree. Sir Bike Salat. Couldn't agree with you more. Order of chaos. The dragging out was orchestrated to get the population to experience issue fatigue. Yes. When it was well known side effect tactic to rope it up the public. Yeah, after a certain point, the public gets tired of this taking place. They may have said, yes, Brexit, okay, go and get it done. All right. A, what does it mean? Well, we don't want to be part of the European Union. Yeah, but what does exactly that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean exactly? And Theresa May, at this point, has to make this choice of, man, businesses are going to be hit by this. And those businesses are going to be angry at me. Versus the Brexiteers, who essentially wants to rip themselves from Britain, rip themselves from the European Union, and don't necessarily care the fallout of ripping themselves from the European Union. Those people are somewhat isolated in their choices, meaning what they can advocate for, they either benefit from the thing that they're advocating for, or it's untouched, meaning it doesn't touch them. It's not going to be adversely affected by coming out of the European Union, even though a lot of people, many of which who probably voted for Boris Johnson, would be. And, the question becomes, what is that impact in the short term versus the long term? I don't buy into the second referendum stuff. Why isn't Bush in prison? I ask that question every day. Watch Galloway's on Brexit on RT. Yes, he seemed to have figured out. Yes, the main issue is the importance of cheap European aid. Yes. I've tried to get Galloway on this show. I've wanted him on this show. Galloway is awesome. Build the wall around DC. Yeah, Galloway is awesome on that. He nails that pretty. Yeah, it's funny. I even had this thing up making this argument that, look, you have all of this cheap labor that's coming into the country. Galloway even goes into why some of the other models that people are talking about wouldn't work. I think he said like the Norway model, why they wouldn't work. Yeah. All right, I'm going to end this here. This stream seems to have done much better, so knock on wood. If you guys enjoyed the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. And you can always support the PayPal or Patreon. Thanks, everyone.